beautiful people. I'm waiting for Jasmine Nicole to hop on live with me. Trying to see where she's at. Peace and love. Thanks for the hearts. Ooh. Send me a request, Jasmine. We are back with more sex talk. Woo! Hey, hey, hey. Getting on here with my sis. I'm so excited. Peace.
I'm trying to see what filter I want.
Right. I was like setting mine up beforehand.
Wondering which one is. I don't like this one.
It's the vibe.
Okay, let me go back to my first one. I like this one. All right. Hello.
Hey, girl, hey. How are you?
Good. I'm finally moved in to Coconut Creek. And is it loud?
I can hear your voice a little bit because I guess some of the noise is like fragmenting your voice, but it's not like hard to hear you. I guess when some of the noise comes in, it might be a little hard like that.
Okay. I'm like in the only place that I kind of have privacy to talk.
But I can hear you though.
Okay, as long as you can hear me. But yeah, I'm in Coconut Creek. It's day 2, so I might document this new life in Broward.
You should, because we know it's the struggle.
Yeah, man. I'm officially I'll always be a New Yorker, but I've been a Dade girl for like 6 years. So being a Broward girl, I'm not really into.
It's another life.
It's another life. Like Broward is different. First of all, everyone here like got money. I was like, oh, okay, this is different. But the streets are wider. Everything is bigger. Just like it's really nice. But I want that fast pace of Miami, that New York life that Miami provides. But you know, it is what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a little slower. It's more retiree vibes, but I feel like it's good, especially for like a short time. But yes, so welcome to the talk. I am very happy to present wonderful, beautiful Jasmine Nicole to discuss a few things about sex. I've been trying to just run different conversations with different individuals that I think embody sensuality and sexuality in their lifestyle, in their brand, and in their art. And I think that I have been honing in on these conversations just to give you guys a little highlight of a lot of gems that these conversations hold that I have with these people and these women and these artists all the time that a lot of people are not hearing, number one. And number two, to showcase my event at the end of the month on May 26th, that is going to include a premiere of my film and also more conversations surrounding sex with a guest speaker. So the first question that I want to ask Jasmine Nicole is, what is your relationship to sex?
Okay, so my relationship to sex. I have been coming into my sexuality as a woman, I'd say now for the past 7 years. I was in high school always just like turned off, kind of just like such a prude that I didn't even want to talk about it, you know. But I know deep down inside I was interested. I just wasn't ready until, you know, I came into my 20s, and that's kind of when just like, you know, and I was older, so I was able to accept it more and come to understand certain things more. And it wasn't until like I actually lost my virginity and that I actually started to understand and be more intrigued and wanting to understand like the different kinds of sex, how to own your sexuality, you know. And when I moved to Florida is when I like it was just like, I don't care, this is who I am, you know? And meeting you, doing the Goddess Collective, like layer by layer, you know, I was just learning, things were just popping up, presenting itself. I was learning more, and also having health issues taught me to learn more internally about, you know, sex and not externally or through other people. So my relationship with sex now is just like I'm definitely sexually liberated. I believe most and everyone should be sexually liberated. Talk about it, try it if you're comfortable. Yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
Hmm. Two things. What would you say is the biggest thing that was groundbreaking for you in your journey to sexual liberation, especially after you started having sex? And then what kind of things, if you're comfortable with sharing, were groundbreaking in you navigating health issues with sex? Because I feel like that's a subject that a lot of people don't really talk about at all.
Okay, so to answer your first question, I think talking about it. I was so turned off from talking about it because I was embarrassed or I was uncomfortable or, being religious really turned me off from wanting to know about it because there was so much guilt in talking about it and feeling feelings, you know. So talking about it definitely opened up the floor to trying different things, to being okay with trying different things and being around it and showing it off in my physical. Because I was so opposed to talking about it, I covered my body always. In high school, I was covered from like neck to wrist, you know. I would wear I would wear tight things, but I was super into fashion. So like I would, try to make it fashionable. But for the most part, like I never talked about it. I was just completely like, what is sex? Sex is, I don't know, you know? Um, so I think the first step into gaining that awareness and being okay with sexuality is to have the conversation of what you think sex is to you and kind of breaking society's views as to what sex is. To answer your second question, I had like cervical issues when I was 24, 25. I contracted an STI from someone that I was in a relationship or in a situationship with, and I didn't know. I was monogamous to them, and they were not to me. And I didn't know that I had caught something and was out here living my best life in celibacy, like because we had broken up and I was trying to get over that heartbreak. So I wasn't out here like, slinging it, but I didn't know that I had caught something. And it had been about 2 months and it started to affect my cervix and my
Uh,
uterus. Yeah. And I didn't know. So having to rebuild, first of all, that relationship with my uterus because we were at odds. We were at odds since I got my period. Like we were just like, you know,
straight up.
always on site, like, you know. So I after like having such bad periods and then after having this physical, issue, I decided to make amends with my lady parts. And with doing that, I decided to educate myself as best as I could with the female reproductive system, you know. And with that also came celibacy. With that came toys. With that came abstinence. Like there was different stages that I did and used to heal myself and to gain a relationship with my femininity and my feminine parts. So being sick, I think, is the second best thing for me after having the conversation first.
Mm.
I know, shocker, right?
Yeah, no, it's amazing. I feel like that's always how it always happens, like that sought after knowledge. And there's so many things that trigger that. And for me, that sought after knowledge has just been just curiosity. I've always been a very curious child. I've always been someone who wanted to know more about sex because it fascinated me. And I was always a very salute. Salute.
Thank you.
I was always a very sexual child. And I think that, salud, I think that you and I probably differ in that way because I was always the young person who was able to explore, even though I never had penetrative sex for a very long time. So I was comfortable with my expression, and I feel like where I was since I grew up in Miami kind of fed into that. And I always talk about how like geography holds so much within culture that contributes to your sexual life. And I don't know if a lot of people really are like very cognizant about stuff like that. But being in a place that's so showy and so expressive and shows skin and it's all about exposure, and it's all about bikinis, and it's all about sexiness. Yeah, a lot of US culture is like that at large, but particularly in Miami, it's known for the clubs and the parties and the coke and the get lit all the time. And I feel like that has such a strong hold on sexuality that when you are raised there, there is a certain level of comfort that you kind of grow into with time, like everyone does in maturity, but there is also an inherent understanding of comfort you're supposed to have almost. Um, I remember feeling very odd about even like expressing my own pleasure during sexual experiences, but I would put on a coochie cutter and some crop tops in a heartbeat. You know what I'm saying? So there was a matter of showing myself in a sexual way that had to marry with me seeking that knowledge for sex that actually made it more real, more important, and more knowledgeable and intentional for me too, I would say.
That's funny that you say like the culture has a huge influence, because like I was around a bunch of white people.
Mm.
So it was, and I was in a small town in Valley Stream, Long Island. So there wasn't a lot of exposure for me, you know. It wasn't until that I got into like high school that the rumors about girls started coming out, but still it was still very hush hush. Like no one was wearing anything crazy. First of all, you're in New York. It's cold eight months out of the year, so no one's wearing anything crazy. We're all in like sweatpants and Uggs and stuff like that. But it wasn't until I started getting older that like you start seeing certain things. So I wasn't curious about it, you know. It was kind of just like, oh well, I heard this thing and I don't really understand what that means. You know. And it wasn't until I stepped out into the world and went into New York City and went into Manhattan that it was just like, oh wait, that's a thing. Like what's going on, you know. So culture really does. I can only imagine if I would have grown up here in Miami, like what I would have been exposed to, because there are things that I had never seen until I came down here. And that was at what, 24 years old. And I was just like, oh my God. I'm working at South Beach. I'm just like, my innocence. I was just like, wait, I thought New York was crazy. Miami, South Beach is insane.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. What would you say is the, I don't know if you can think back on this, but what would you say was the first pivotal, important thing that you learned about your sexuality in particular in your journey to liberation?
Being okay telling someone what I don't like and what I do like. I think a lot of people are intimidated and don't want to have the conversation, especially women, because they want men to like them, or men are super egotistical when it comes to sex, so they don't even want to hear what you have to say because they got it and they've had multiple partners and they already know. So a lot of women, because they're intimidated or for whatever reason, you know, they don't express what it is that they like and want. And I think when I started doing that, sex became a lot more fun for me, and it was less about trying to make the other person happy and come and make myself, because if you don't know what you need or what you desire, what you like, you can't rely on someone else to know that and do that for you, you know. So I think that was a huge pivotal point for me, and when I started taking control of my sexuality and all of that, you know, was just letting people know, letting my partners know, okay, I don't like this, so I'm gonna let you have the conversation beforehand. Don't do this. This is not it for me. Or don't just dive right in, because I'm an oven and I need to be warmed up and preheated. So like, I don't know what you thought was gonna happen, but no, you know. And I think that having that conversation definitely changed the game for me.
Yeah, that is so important. I feel like there's so many things in there. Like for me, I also graduated into having more of a voice for myself, and a lot of it was just me feeling like I had to be a certain way sexually in order to be liberated and be comfortable. Like I thought that there was this wild woman that I needed to have under control in order to even have a voice to say the small things that I wanted with sex. And over time, I'm realizing that you don't need any of that. You don't need to be this prowess or this idea in your mind about what it's supposed to look like in order for you to feel like you have any power. And I feel like when certain ideas in your mind are not fulfilled, especially when those ideas are exacerbated with imagery and pornography, or imagery and what these guys are talking about, or imagery and what people are expressing that are not real. Most of them are just fantasies. Most of them don't even know what these things are or haven't had these experiences, but they're talking big game like they know exactly what it is. It's very hard for you to feel much less insecure about the things that you should feel very comfortable about, or the things that you should have enough of a voice to say. Even if you're not having penetrative sex, you shouldn't feel weird about telling someone that you don't want to do that. I remember talking to this one guy. When I first met him, I was 20 years old and I wasn't having penetrative sex yet. And I was telling everybody around that time that I wasn't having sex, but for some reason, I had this feeling that he was really into the fact that he would be having sex with me, or probably wanted to have sex with me. And so it just made me feel completely uncomfortable. Just because I knew he had this strong sexual energy, I wasn't comfortable. And I feel like that's the story for a lot of women. Like, we feel like these men might have a smidge of confidence and a smidge of experience, and all of a sudden we become meek and quiet in our own truths. And we need to be speaking out. Besides that, we need to be saying what we want and who we want to do it with. Besides that, just because someone has years on us, whether that is 1 year or 18 years, doesn't mean that we have lost our voice for what we want. One thing that I am going to do on my event, which is going to be a virtual event, so anybody can join on May 26th. It's going to be a Thursday afternoon. I'm going to give a lot of different resources to different shows that I've watched before, different tests, sexuality tests, BDSM tests, different things that you can take to find out more information about your sexuality, and to also have more insight into understanding what boundary tests you can take and how you can practice those things with a friend of yours or a close person in your life, where you can practice having a voice. Because that's one thing that we don't usually practice. It's like, we want to get better at sex. We want to do things where we feel more sexually liberated, but what are those practices and what do they actually look like? People don't have any insight when it comes to that. It's all about these big words and nothing about the strategic actions to get to those points.
Yeah, I think that one thing, if I can give any advice to anybody about having better sex, turn off the porn. That's the first thing. Turn it off. Before I started having sex, I would watch it because, like,
that's the only access you have to visualizing what sex is supposed to look like.
And then afterwards, when I finally did have sex and I realized that it was nothing that I was watching, and I was just like, I was confused. I was like, wait, what's going on? And then I disciplined myself to actually turn it off, because I wasn't enjoying myself like I wanted to be, because I had these expectations. Like, the women on there are having such an amazing grand time, and I'm like, what are they doing? Like, what are they doing? And I just could not understand until I turned it off, and I realized that, like, those expectations are diminishing my time, what my perception as to what I should be doing and how I should be feeling. And when I started using my own memories, when I started using my own imagination, I started using not even just like learning myself and not watching through the other person's eyes or their experience, then I really started to enjoy myself. I was able to have the conversation. I was able to not care about what a man thought, and I enjoyed having sex with men that didn't really watch porn. That's
Me
my favorite.
too.
Like, that's my favorite, because they are more engaged, less in performance, because that's normally men that watch porn. They're only engaged in performance and gratification. And men that don't or watch it less are more engaged in pleasing and the experience. And I started realizing the two differences. in myself and my partners. And yeah, if anything, like now I turn it on every few months, and it's literally just for sounds, just for
Mm.
sounds. I'm not watching it. I don't really care to watch it. It's more for just like sounds to amplify the memories in my head, because sometimes as time passes, the memories that you have start to darken. So when I use sensory things, it revitalizes those memories that I have, or like if I'm thinking about like scenarios or whatever the case may be, my imagination's coming up with some stuff. The sounds sometimes help that. So that's the only thing I'll like listen to it for or put it on for. But if that could be any advice to anyone, I would say turn it off.
Yes, I
It's
hope
not doing you any well. Unless
I
you're trying to learn
hope
something. That's when I'm like, okay, because it could teach. It depends on what you're watching, like there are some things where I'm just like, why is this even on the internet? There are other things where I'm like, oh, that's something I could try, different positions, different types of things. Like you can learn certain things, but when you're watching it just to get that gratification every night or multiple times a day or whatever the case may be, wind it back. Wind it back.
Yeah, there's like three things in there. I hope I remember all three. So just piggybacking off what you just said, there is a level of understanding that you have to have in order to watch porn with a conscious eye. And that is when you can watch it and learn something and receive the knowledge that you can then apply to other people that is applicable to other people and not just subjective to this one person with this one experience this one time. And it can be laid out over multiple people because it is coming from a space of intentional satisfaction. It is coming from a space of patience. It's coming from a space of passion. And I feel like you have to be integrated in your mind with the idea that comes so outside of pornography in order to use pornography as a tool in that way. Number two, the thing about porn is that it jumps, skips, hops, and then you're doing some good shit. And that's the issue. It's when you're watching it without that critical eye, you're watching it in a way where you are only consuming exactly what it shows you, and it's showing so little of what you are doing to get to the point that they are showing. And that's where all of the magic happens. The last live that I spoke to Kamisha Sade about, we spoke about outer course. And I was expressing how I just discovered this term and it blew my mind because it made so much sense to me. I'm like, yo, this is what I've been missing this whole time. Not that I haven't been doing things that were outer course, but I haven't conceptualized exactly what it was that I was doing to be more intentional about doing this shit all the time. So when I decided that it was something that I was going to integrate into my life, I started to think about, okay, well, how can that be integrated and what can I learn more about it that I can understand better, explain to people better, and also know how to marry it very well with intercourse. And I was explaining it to others as it being this one thing that you do that is very outside of the expectation of orgasm or intercourse, but it connects to the road and the journey to get you there, to give you that satisfaction.
I would say like warming up the oven.
Right. And when people think about that, sometimes they stop and they only think about foreplay.
Oh no.
And that's where it begins and ends for them. And that's what I want to expand, that knowledge that it's foreplay is in the umbrella of outer course, but outer course does not fit inside foreplay. And once we start to disregard the word foreplay, not to say that we're not doing it, but we start to expand our minds on doing everything on this side of the spectrum and then lead to everything on the other side. And that has been very groundbreaking for me because that is what porn really misses. That is what the key things that young 15-year-old boys are not getting, and they don't have the critical eye to look at porn and understand that that's not there because they haven't had those experiences, and so they don't get it, you know. And that's why
know what intimacy is. They barely know what like any of that is. So if you don't know these adult things that you have to, like, normally intimacy comes with like talking and time, and kids don't understand what that is. We have no sense of time at 15 and those ages, you know. What is time? It's irrelevant to us, you know. So as an adult, like, you start to learn those things. So when a kid is watching porn, they just see the action and they're like, this is what it is, this is what I'm going to do. They don't know what outer course or intimacy or foreplay, they don't know what any of that stuff is. You know?
Yeah. And I would say that in my divorcing of porn, which I haven't watched porn, I mean, I don't know, definitely going on 10 years, between like 6 and 8 years, I would say. That's what I would do. I would put it on as a soundtrack to how I want it to feel, because I'm a voyeur and I'm a sensual erotic, and I know that just watching something is good for me, but it has to be authentic. So if it's not authentic, like porn cannot be, then I have to listen to something that sounds authentic. And that's the only way that I used to be able to masturbate and to do things that was still using sources outside of myself. But one thing that I hone into my film, which you know because you've seen it, is how much of sex you explore by honing into yourself and only yourself beginning with yourself starting and ending with yourself, and then graduating to sharing yourself. And I feel like that concept is something that is so lost, especially in a society like we have, which is so hypersexual all the time. I mean, we thought it was hypersexual in the 2000s, okay? But Lord, has it come so far beyond in 2022. I mean, just the imagery of women and the expression of what is sensual and sexual and attractive and pleasurable in and of itself is so particular and so hypersexual and hyper femme. And that gives you a different idea to how you want to express yourself, or even how you can even find your expression to show other people who you are in a sexual or sensual way.
Yeah, completely. I think right now a huge issue is it being thrown in our faces in a very inorganic way. I'm trying to find the right words to explain. Like, I feel like our reality has become a porno. Like, they're not showing us anything other than the aha moment, and boom, it's already there. You know, they went from this point to this point, and like you said, there was no in between, or how did we get here? It's kind of just like, that's the reality we're living in right now. You don't see the outer course or the intimacy or the foreplay anymore. There's no sex appeal. It's just like, boom, in your face, here it is. And it's just like, okay. That's why 2022 is just like, okay, we thought 1992 was bad. You know, we thought 2000 was bad. 2022 is just like, how did we get here? I don't understand. You know, I miss the times of just like, again, preheating the oven. Us, you know, walking into a room and just someone's entire being and presence is their sexual, you know, their sex appeal. I just feel like, again, it's just in your face. I think I saw it on the internet. Somebody had a poll, and they were like, do you get approached anymore, or how do you find your partners? Is it in person or is it online? Like, how are you finding your partners? And I was just like, wow, like, I don't get approached in person nearly as much as online. And it's like, why? Because in person, I'm just playing Jasmine, you know, I'll be chilling out here. On the internet, it's just like, you see photos and boom, all of a sudden they skip past everything, and it's just like, boom, we in the DMs doing this, and you're just like, wait, hold up. If this was face to face, it wouldn't have been like this, you know. And it's kind of like, I want to reel it back. I want to go back to the times where we're just like getting to know each other. We're intimate. We're foreplaying. We're outer coursing. Like, we're doing all of this slowly before we just climax, you know.
Yes.
It's very weird times we're living in.
Yeah, I think so many of us collectively are looking for the climax, and a lot of it is the
Instant gratification.
it's the instant gratification and the lack of direction as to even how to get there. Like you said, we're living in a porno, which is a perfect analogy. I'm like, oof, that hit home. We are all looking for, okay, well, when's the part where she's screaming at the top of her lungs and he is going crazy as hell from the back? Like, that's what we're looking for. Like, there's literally no in between, no before, and no one gives a fuck about what comes after. They just care about the hot spot, the hot topic,
the climax,
the fun. That's it. Yep. Like, show me that, just show me that. Don't even show me how to get there, because that looks more fun than how to get there. I'm not even interested in how they got there because it looks damn good how to get there. Let's just get into that and maybe we can figure it out. Like, that's not how you do it. It takes so much more. I think that it takes people who are very conscious and very liberated, and a lot of the sex educators and the sensuality workers, to really move the culture in a way where we are bringing it back to basics, and we are having people to slow down, and we are just giving our 2 cents about what things work well. And yeah, you are attracted to me, but I'm going to tell you why you're attracted to me. You're not attracted to me because I learned the ram bam thank you man from porn. You're attracted to me because I had a journey to get here, and I exude my sensuality because of the work I've done for myself. So how does sensuality and sexuality integrate into your brand, and how do you use those two things in order to express your artistry?
Well, to start off with, if you were to see my physical art, you would know that it is very sexual and very sensual, and it always has been, at least for the past 8 or 9 years. And that was a lot for me to get to because I was such a prude. I had all this sexual tension inside of me that I did not know how to release. And I was into fashion design since I was 8 years old. So I've been drawing clothes my entire life I stopped around 21, 22. And that's when my art, you see no clothing on them anymore. I completely stopped drawing all forms of clothing. And it was because at 19, I decided I no longer wanted to wear bras. And that was my first step into being sexually liberated. And it was something that my mom could not understand. It was something that I was super hesitant about. I was like, oh my God, I'm doing this. Like, what? First of all, I'm part of the Itty Bitty Titty Committee. There was nothing really there. Hold up. So I don't even understand why I was like so nervous. But this was like my first time, like, oh my God, here we are. We're doing something, you know? And I decided that, well, it was, my mom was just like, so you're not wearing a bra? And like nipples were a huge thing, and like breasts being loose were a huge thing. And if you're familiar with my art, you know that that's how I communicate, that's how I speak. So things that people were uncomfortable with were things that I wanted to make people comfortable with eventually. So everybody wants to be loud right now. So it was like, oh, you're uncomfortable with that? Okay, I'm going to put it in my art. So I completely took all the clothing off of my people in my art, and I wanted people to understand that nudity was something that we should all be comfortable with. I was uncomfortable with the fact that I was uncomfortable with nudity, and I needed to make myself comfortable with it. So I decided to start drawing more nude people, and in order for me to draw nude people, I had to draw myself. So I started drawing myself nude first, which is my art, you know? And that was my first step into owning and being okay with my sexuality and my sensuality. Then came modeling. I never wanted to model. I always told everybody, I'm behind the cameras, I'm a designer, I'm not in front of the cameras, blah, blah, blah. And I was working at All Saints, and this guy was helping, like, I'm a photographer, but I'm an artistic photographer, and I can make you float, and I could do all these cool things. And he was gay, so I felt more comfortable with being in front of him as a model than I would of a cis man, you know? Because I did not want to be hit on. I didn't want men being attracted to me, which is so weird. Like, I was super like, oh, you like me? No, don't like me, you know? So here's a gay man that was like, oh, I'm a photographer. You are amazing to be a model. Like, I would love to shoot you. And I was like, you know what? Let's try it. So I came in with like my clothing and stuff like that, and it was a lot of fun. And from then on, I started like gradually shooting more and shooting more, and within that, became more comfortable with wearing certain things. I did not go nude, or I did not like wear any bikinis until years into me modeling because I wasn't comfortable. And then obviously social media, the way that it turned, forced me to start taking more clothes off. you know. But because now sexuality and nudity were okay with me, when I first moved down here, I started dating a guy who was pretty much a nudist in the house, and he taught me how to be okay with being nude. We walked around the house completely naked, windows open and everything, and that was the pivoting point of when I became okay with being naked. I wasn't always okay with it, showing my body, but he made me feel like I should. He was like, I would walk by and, his attraction was just like, it blew my mind. So from then on, I was like, oh, wait, I'm sexy? Like, this is a thing, you know? And once those windows became open to me, then it was just like, oh, okay. Again, social media had a huge part in it too. It was just like, if I need people to hear what I'm saying, then I may have to show a little bit more skin. And as unfortunate as that is the reality we live in. Sex sells. And it also became a part of, I was okay with being sexually liberated, and I had to be okay with being okay with that. A lot of people are like, oh, you're just doing this for the gram. And it was like, no, I'm doing this because I finally am owning my sexy. I'm finally owning being a woman. I'm finally owning all of this. It became less about Instagram and more about my expression and more about who I am as a woman and as a person. And then it was just like, okay, this is me. This is me now. Like, who you knew me back in 2013, 12, 15, that person, she doesn't exist. This new person sees herself. She sees her sexy. She's owning it. And it became a part of Jasmine Nicole. My art got more sexy. Like, my poetry became more sexy. Everything just became more sexy. But I wouldn't even say it became more sexy. I would just say it became more honest. It became more real. It was like I was living in my truth of owning what society did not want me to own. They want you to hide. They want a lady in the streets with a freak in the bed. And it's like, no, I can be whatever I want at any time. I can walk out with a see-through shirt on in broad daylight on a Wednesday at a family function. Okay? Be okay with it. I got my nipple pierced when I was 19, and I was so scared to show my mom. I don't think she found out until like I was 21 or maybe like 22, 23. Yeah. I would put tape on it because I wasn't wearing bras. So I would put tape on it. So I would walk around the house with tape on one nipple. And one day I was just like, it's here. And she was like, is your nipple pierced? And I was like, yep. It's been like this for like 4 years, mommy. She was like, are you serious? Yep. That was me finally just being like, you know what? To hell with society's views on sexuality, sex appeal, a woman's body, a woman's form, a man, and all of that. And it was just like, do whatever the hell you want. And that's my TED Talk.
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Yeah, there is something to say about the ownership of a female form by a woman, because men for thousands of years have sculpted and painted and probed and charcoaled and oiled and fucking acrylic the fuck out of some titties and some vulva and some ass, okay? But somehow, once the selfie started to be popular, oh, it's a problem now. They going crazy on the internet now. They got the cameras up to their face.
They're making money off of what we were making money off of?
Now it's a problem.
They finally see
because these same men would love to hold a camera and take a picture of a naked girl in a bedroom, but there's a problem when she does it for herself. And there has always been a problem for women honing in on what they know is sexy, because like you said, what became more sexy just became more honest, just became more authentic, just became more me, just became more exposure to truth. And that's what is sexy. People they'll understand that vulnerability is married with strength because of exposure and because of exposure of true self and authenticity. Like nothing about me would be really appealing if I was out here trying to fake the funk, trying to be somebody else. Like the only reason why it's appealing or I'm appealing or people are attracted to me in any appealing ways because I am first and foremost and always myself at all times. And everyone who knows me knows this. Everyone who knows me is like, you know what, Ayana, you are just you. And you don't try to be nobody else. You are just you at all times. And that is really what our work aims to do when we uplift and empower and inspire, especially me, because Ayana the Model is a brand that uplifts, empowers, and inspires and focuses on freedom, expression, and the freedom of expression through the body. That's what I do. When that happens, I am only putting up a mirror to other people who are just like, yo, I see something in you and I don't know that I'm seeing it in me, but it feels really good. And I'm like, what you're seeing in yourself is where you are more true and what is more you. And you have been something that's a different version because the journey to where you are now or what you're waking up to is just now here in this space, in this time, in this journey, in this realm, in this world. And you haven't really been living much more of yourself back then, but you know, you can always push for more of you now. And more of you will be sexy. More of you will be sensual. More of you, especially if you tap into the feminine, will be divine and will automatically come off as alluring and mystical and soothing and almost like you're stargazing in a way. It's just admirable. You can't look at it and not be attracted to it. And it's only because it's just more truth about who you are. That's it. Like I've always been attracted to authenticity, and that's the one thing that I would never take away from anybody. And that's the one thing that really showcases like the best parts of anybody, you know, is that truth and that authenticity. And
I think that a lot of people have a weird perception as to what they think is sexy, but there's no definition.
It's performative. They think sexy is what they want to perform as opposed to who their true self needs to actually showcase to be.
Yeah, even more than performative, I think that a lot of people think that it's what they see on social media. I think it's what they see in the porns. I think it's what they see in society.
Well, yeah. They see it, but it's on a big ass screen with some bright ass lights, and they're just like, oh my God, look, the shiny, sparkly thing in the sky that everyone's looking at, that's what I need. Instead of, if I become more of my true self and show that true self, I become the sparkly thing in the sky. I become the star. I shine from the inside out. I am the beauty that you see from the outside because I am pouring so much of myself from the inside. Like, they have the wrong glitz and glam of what it's supposed to look like mixed up.
Yeah, I think it's just you. I think it could be you in some boxers. I think it could be you in a thong. I think it could be you in pretty much anything. You know, it's your perception of what you feel good and how you feel liberated. It's your expression. You know, I don't think sex has a specific definition. I think it's your comfort. Like in a bedroom, you know, it could be anything you want it to be. And I think that that's a huge, again, the performance thing comes in. I think a lot of men, their version of sexy is completely different a woman's version or thought of being sexy. You know, I would love to know how men feel sexy, and if it's external or internal. I'm probably going to have to do more research on that. I'm going to ask a few of my guy friends what makes them feel sexy internally. But it's starting again with the conversation with self, and then having the conversation externally. I think again, if you turn off the screens, if you turn off the phones, if you stop watching the pornos, then you will develop your own idea of what sexy is. I know we're closing out in 15 minutes, but I also wanted to add in, when you actually are engaged in sexual intercourse or performance or whatever the case may be, don't be afraid if it's not where you want it to be to stop. Don't be afraid to stop it dead in its tracks and be like, this is not working out for me. You know, with my ex, like, there was a few times where in the middle of sex, I'm like, you know what? I'm not feeling it. You seem disconnected. I don't really feel connected, you know, like this is not sexy to me. This doesn't feel good. Like, don't be afraid to stop things right in their track if it's not sexy to you. It's going to turn you off. You know, you're not going to want to be there. You're not going to want to be engaged or involved. So I'd say first, like, figure out what sexy is to you before you allow society to show you what sexy is. You know.
Yeah, I think that goes back to, yeah, it makes sense. And it goes back to having your voice and putting up those boundaries on what you even like to begin with. Because if you can speak about what you like and what you don't like off the bat, then you can speak about what things are comfortable and what things are uncomfortable in the midst of it all. Like, anytime you're practicing how to practice your voice and how to use your voice to express yourself and to just let your partner know, or let whoever it is that you're engaging with know what things are going on with you, you're going to find that strength to speak up and speak out no matter what you're doing, no matter where you are, in and outside of the bedroom, but particularly inside of the bedroom. And I've done that before. I've stopped someone mid-stroke, like, you know what?
It's not, you have to.
It's not really doing it for me. We're going to have to not take 5. We're going to have to just stop and go. We're going to have to go home now.
I don't care who you are. If it's not working out for me, I'm not about to engage and go through, because I've followed through and I've been through some weird, I got stories. So I've learned in the midst of, if you're not liking what's going on, you put the brakes on and you figure it out. You can either leave, you can either tell them exactly what you want, or you could just stop.
Yeah, and most of the time too, because I think that sometimes if you're having a partner who's not privy to having you speak up or speak out about what things are happening, a lot of times people are not really maliciously out here trying to hurt you. Sometimes people are, but even in some of like the most unfortunate circumstances, people are really not out here trying to get you, and people would really rather you tell them what's going on. Like, hindsight 2020, most of the time you go back and you're like, yeah, I wasn't really wrong with that. You're like, why didn't you say anything? Like,
50-50.
I mean, I'm not saying that everyone does, but I'm just saying that I know from experience that there is a level of assumption, let's say in heteronormative integration of sex or intercourse, for example, there is a heavy assumption on men just like being very hurtful. And I'm not saying that that's not very true, but I'm saying that sometimes, even if a man is not like out here trying to give you the best care and nurture, they're also not trying to hurt you, and they wouldn't really want to intentionally hurt you. And a lot of times, if you just had the shedding of the insecurity to speak up, you can just express that to someone who really doesn't want to hurt you. And maybe they are pushing their own agenda, but they will not push their own agenda above your boundary. But if you never say anything, then it makes it for a very uncomfortable and disruptive experience that can really turn into a traumatic experience if gone on unsaid and untouched and unheard and unhealed. So I just want to say that too. Like, sometimes we get so caught up in what we think people want or don't want, or they won't like, or they'll have an issue. People, a lot of times, hopefully, if you're choosing the right people to do these things with, they're not really wanting to hurt you. There are some people who are, but there are a lot more people who really are not. And so speaking up about what you want and what feels good and what things you can do for yourself does way more for everyone involved than it just does for you. So thinking in a selfish way, or thinking that it comes off as a selfish way, is just a really broken way to think about it, as opposed to a liberated way for everyone involved to be.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're with someone that's not wanting to hear you out or not stop or whatever, then you don't need to be, having sex with that person or engaging in any type of sexual relations with that person. If you're trying to have a sexual conversation with someone, explaining what you like, your dislikes, and they're like, no, I already know what's up. I already know. You don't have sex. Like, what? If I'm trying to tell you what I like and you're trying to tell me what I like, then you're not ready to have sex with me.
At all.
We had conversations with men or partners that were just like they knew everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like,
or they'll emotionally manipulate you into doing something that they really want to do, and whatever you put a boundary on, it's your fault, or they guilt trip you into doing it. If you feel guilty about something that you don't want to do in sex, biggest red flag. That's sexual coercion. And after repeated sexual coercion, it goes into non-consensual shit, and that's just rape. So there's a lot of nuances and a lot of things we have to be cognizant about, especially when it comes to people who really are not respecting our bodies, because there are a lot of people out here who are not. And there's so many of us, and particularly women that I speak about, and like, yes, this is not for every single woman who exists on the planet Earth, but so many of us, and so many of us who have these conversations off camera, so many of us who have these conversations who identify with our own experiences with one another, because we can all attest to having these things happen to us that are unfavorable experiences to have. We can attest to that, and we definitely need to help each other find those voices and big up each other's confidence in order for us to stand on our own 2 feet in our own experiences when we're engaging with those own people, to be able to speak up and say exactly what it is that we want and what we don't want, because that's the most important thing. And during my event, which you can find the tickets in my bio, they are $22. I only have 9 tickets left that are discounted. Everything else is going to be $44.44. So if you don't want to wait anymore, go to the link in my bio. Go to Sacred Screening and Sex Talk in order to buy tickets for my online event. This is going to be virtual, so anybody can go there and grab tickets all over the country, all over the world. But one thing that I'm going to have at that event are resources, because a lot of times we have these conversations, but the resources might be missing. And I want you guys to not only just leave feeling liberated, but leave and be able to share something about yourself, being able to grab language to dictate to someone else you're speaking to about what you like. What do you like? What do you don't like? What things are high on your list? What things are low on your list? What things you didn't even know was on your list? Like, those things are important to hone in on and to integrate into something that you practice and you say and you live every day, because a more sexual liberated person is a more liberated person in general. It's a more free person in general. It's such a pivotal point of how we live our most authentic lives. Ooh, I think Jasmine is loading. Well, we do have a couple more minutes. If anybody wants to, oh, she is. Oh no. So we do have a couple, okay, there you go. I was like, where did she go? Lost you for a bit. Yes, any last minute thoughts before we wrap anything up? I'm gonna give another announcement for the event, and yeah, anything else that you want to share?
Takeaway,
Sexuality.
takeaway points that we touched on was one, have the I'm 100% like 100% about, again, that's the first step to being sexually liberated, is to talk about it. If you're curious, want to learn, if you want to, whatever the case may be, have the conversation. 2, would be internally be best friends with your private and your internal sexual organs. Know yourself from within and without. See what you like, self, masturbate, go online, research. Do not learn from porn. Do not learn from someone else in the sense of allowing them to take control over your parts in order to tell you what feels good. Learn yourself, so that when you are with a partner, you know how to get yourself there, or you can have the conversation as to how to get. 3, again, turn off the porn. You don't have to turn it off completely, but please at least turn it off in the sense of, do not allow that you're getting your information
Mm-hmm.
and learning and having experience. As the reality of, well, this bird, the, the reality of sex versus porn, they're not the same. You know, at least if you are going to watch porn, watch like the home films or something like that. Like stuff where people are actually like human beings are doing it. It's not on a set, you know. Or would be if someone is not willing to hear you out, sex is not feeling good, or you're just not into it, stop. And it's okay to stop. It's okay to be like, you know what, I'm gonna head out, or we need to talk, or whatever the case may be. Have that conversation. Yeah, Bird is walling right now. I don't know if it's his bedtime, trying to wrap me up. He's like, you gotta stop talking.
Like it's 7:55. TikTok, sis.
My curfew is 8 o'clock. Need you to wrap up. So, yeah, also, yeah, speaking of wrapping it up, figure out if you have a latex allergy too. That's a huge thing. That's a really, really, really big thing that happens.
Yeah, latex allergies are real. I became very sensitive to latex for a time, but it was like a couple years for me.
Yeah, I didn't know. I was trying to figure out why certain things like be red or irritated, or I would dry up, or like certain things would happen. I didn't understand until I switched out the non-latex, and during that time the non-latex were not that great, cute, and they were very plastic. But now 2022 skins, that's all I'm saying, is where it's at. So definitely figure out, it will save your life, definitely amplify the, and yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and also in terms of like vaginal health.
Oh, and lube, 100%.
Lube is not just for people who are too dry. You really should be using it all the time and on all the toys all the time. Like,
I am 100% a lube advocate. It will change your entire life. I don't care.
like why are we not at Water Rapid Slip and Slide?
No, even if you are a water rapid slip and slide.
No, I'm saying with the lube.
Oh, wow.
100% on top of 100% will be Water Rapid Slip and Slide.
Like flavored, there's hot, there's cold, there's just, you got options. So if you've never tried, try it. I'm telling you, it will change your life. And that's it.
I also want to say, make sure that everyone gets tested, STD, STI tested. I know that we didn't touch on that too much, but going back to what Jasmine shared in the very beginning of this video, you always want to know your status because you never know. And you being monogamous is not enough. You being monogamous and being faithful is never enough because there's always someone else you have to do those things to. Unless you are abstinent and celibate, those things are not enough. And even if you are, I know we don't talk about it too much, but if you are sharing or using toys, you should be using condoms on your toys. It's okay to use condoms on your toys and use them on yourself. So having these misconceptions of what you use condoms for, who you use condoms on, what you use lube for, what you use lube on, who you use lube with, you can use all those things with yourself, by yourself, and for yourself, because that's only going to increase the health that you have with yourself and your sexual reproductive organ.
Yes, and ladies, definitely look into herbal and holistic ways of healing internally.
Yes.
100%.
All of the oils, all of the steams, all the things.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
well, thank you so much, my lovely Jasmine Nicole. Once again, I'm so glad we got to have this talk. I feel like you are one of my most sexually liberated friends. I'm always lucky and happy and excited to have these conversations with you. I just
hour, like we would need like 4 hours of, if you guys really want to get to the nitty gritty with me, we need like at least 4 hours.
That's what we need. And I just want to remind everyone that Sacred Screening and Sex Talk is my online event coming up on May 26th. Tickets are now on sale. You can go to my bio and get them. There will be my movie screening, which just got picked up by the Cannes Short Film Festival.
Yo,
And
you have to see. Honestly, like it blew my mind when I was just because Ayana showed me clips. I've heard about it, but when I saw the film, it's something that I believe every child should, whether you're male, female, binary, whatever term you want to use. I think that it allows young mind, middle-aged mind, whatever mind you have, okay with sex. Speaking of it, the conversation, everything that pertains to it. Like your film, I'm a huge advocate. You guys can go on her page, get the link, go watch it. I don't know where you post it, but if you guys can watch it, the link and I'll post it in my story. I'll send it to whoever wants to see it. Watch it. It's
yes,
really
the next time I'll be premiering it is going to be for this event because I really want to have a collective viewing. And I want you guys to get a chance to ask me personal questions and ask me direct questions as a director about everything pertaining to the film. It's entitled Sacred Energy Exchange, a personal story on polyandry, kink, and masturbation. It's all about how you go from exploring with other people to exploring with another person to exploring with yourself. It's about how you can learn to touch and feel and free and find all of the satisfaction in your body before anyone else has a chance to misuse and abuse it. Please come to this event. It's one of the most liberating things. You're going to come in with all these questions, come in wondering why you feel certain ways or why you're not as sexually liberated or why you don't feel comfortable nude modeling yet or something that has to do with your body, and you're going to leave understanding so much more about yourself and being so much more committed to learning more about yourself. And that is the value that this is giving you. It literally will change your life. I've had people write reviews on how it has changed their lives. So come change your life. Don't sleep on yourself, okay? Do yourself a service and come to this event on May 26th. Anybody can come. It's going to be online, virtual event. That is all I have to say for now until the next sex talk, which I'll be having with Nat Locks, and I'm excited. We're going to set it up sometime next week. Don't have a date yet, but we'll be posting the flyer in my story.
joining that. I love my lady friends and my male.
The divine friends in general. The family is lit.
Yes. But all right.
I love you, Pooh. I'll talk to you later. Peace.